James chapter 1, we're going to talk about your escape route, your fighting strategy, whatever you might want to call it. This morning we're going to talk about temptation. I don't know of a person here that if you name the name of Jesus Christ, that you don't come up under some extreme temptation. Not only temptation, but you come up against trials and troubles that come your way. But the temptation is the temptation to do evil. We still have an evil that is inside of us called the sin nature. The sin nature wants to be gratified. Even if you know Jesus Christ, that sin nature is still there. And if you don't keep it pushed back and keep it under control, and the only way to keep it pushed back and under control is to stay full of Jesus and to stay full of the Spirit, then that flesh will overtake you in the realm of temptation. James 1, let no one say when he is tempted, I am being tempted by God. For God cannot be tempted by evil, and he himself does not tempt anyone. But each one, you, me, is tempted when he is carried away and enticed by his own lust. Or your version may say by your own evil inside of you. It says, then when lust has conceived, it gives birth to sin. And when sin is accomplished, it brings forth death. Do not be deceived, my beloved brethren. And then notice how he immediately shifts from the negative to the positive. And he says, every good thing given and every perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shift in shadow. I know in school, when we talk about escape route, whether you're in school, a teacher or a student, even if you work in a big office building, the way that our world has gotten today, not only are we concerned about an escape route when there could be a fire that could be going on inside of the building. We want everybody to know where the exits are, the escape route, how to get from A to B, and they'll do different drills. So everybody is planned up and prepared up, and everybody can execute. We also have going on in our day-to-day all of these things that we call evil acts that we never thought we would see in our world today. Whether it's inside of a Walmart or inside of an office building or inside of a school, they put them on shutdown. So everybody, and they go over and they do these drills. Everybody knows what to do, where to go, and everybody knows the plan of attack so that they are prepared. And if you and I are here today and we know Jesus, then we need to be prepared. We need to have a plan in place, and we need to not only prepare for victory, but we need to expect victory in our lives, because in this world that we live in, we're going to come up under attack, and we're going to come up under a severe onslaught of the enemy coming at us, coming at the lust and the evil, the sin nature that is inside of us, trying to entice us to do evil so that the enemy can pull our devotion that we have for God in the opposite direction. So let's start out this morning by talking about temptation and what temptation is. Temptation is enticement. That word entice means to lure. We all know how to fish, or we've been fishing. So when you're fishing, it's all about the enticement. It's all about your bait. It's all about not only the bait you use, but what fish you're trying to catch is going to determine the bait that you use, the lure, the enticement. If there is no lure and enticement, the fish are not going to be tempted to take it. So temptation is enticement. That means that we are being lured by the enemy, enticed by the enemy, to gratify our flesh in a way that would be outside of God's will. So in other words, temptation would be the urge to gratify self for short-term pleasure or short-term fulfillment, but it has very drastic long-term consequences. So in other words, the reason why enticement and temptation is so alluring to us is it brings gratification, it brings pleasure, makes you feel good to be able to blast somebody out sometimes and to have a bad attitude sometimes, or to eat something you're not supposed to eat, or drink something so that you can feel a certain way, to gratify the flesh. That short-term enjoyment, though, can have long-term consequences. So let's put this into different little boxes. I've got little boxes drawn out, and I don't know how to do that on notes, so this is not in your notes. But my first little box I've got is a box for me and a box for you. And inside that box, just write evil desire or sinful flesh. You're going to die with a sinful flesh. Even if you know Jesus and you know life, there's one thing that you've still got, that I've still got, that all of God's children have, and that is an evil flesh. A sin nature there and a flesh that wants to be gratified. So even as a Christian, you're going to come up under attack. So in that little box right there, I got evil desire, I got sinful flesh. Overall, next to it, I got a box that says the enemy. The enemy is Satan. The enemy is the demonic realm. What we need to understand is that when we are fighting today, our fighting may show up, and I might argue with my mom or my dad or with you, but you're not my problem in the big realm of what we can't see. My problem is not what I can see, it's what I can't see. So the unseen realm that I can't see is stirring up the seen realm, the physical realm that I can see, trying to stir me up in this realm through people so that I can go back after people and the whole time be ignoring the real enemy. The real enemy is Satan. The real enemy is the demonic realm. So the demonic realm is planning for your demise. So we got the enemy there. In the other little box, I got the world. I've always looked at it this way. The world is the devil's playground. So he uses the world, the philosophy that is in the world that is anti-God. I mean, if you think about it today, the media will take up for every religion but Christianity. The media won't take up for Christianity. They won't go out on a limb and say they're talking about this about Christians. Now they will when it comes to the Muslims or other things. They'll go out there and they'll make a stand in that realm. But for Christians, they won't. Why? Because this is the devil's playground. This is the devil's system at work. We are the light. And the light is there to put, the darkness is there to try to put the light out. So we've got to try to put the Christians' light out so that we can't shine for Jesus. So we're enticed and we're lured and we're baited through the world. So I've got this evil desire, I got the enemy, now I got the world, but then there comes my other side, which is my spiritual side, which is my physical side, to where you and I get to make a choice. We get to make a choice. We get to decide what we're going to do. So we either yield to sin, make a choice and yield to it, or we submit and we surrender to God. That's your choice. We're going to learn in just a few minutes that when you make your choice, God says you can't say it's her fault, his fault, their fault. You're responsible. You might have contributing factors in your life that may cause your flesh to want to do certain things because that's how you were trained and that's all you saw as you grew up. But there comes a time when you reach that age to where you're accountable and you know Jesus, that you got to stand up and be responsible for your own choices and your own decisions. Nobody makes us sin. We sin and we do evil because we make a choice. Short-term gratification and pleasure, long-term death and destruction. So we get to make that decision. Did you know that the enemy's doing everything he can do to bring out the worst in you, but God's doing everything he can do to bring out the best in you? Because there is a worst in you, but there's also a best in you. And that's always God's goal, is to bring out the best. Now you say, Jeff, you don't understand. Temptation is everywhere. The opportunity to do evil is present every which way you turn. You're right. But you know what else is there every which way you turn? God is. God is near. God never leaves us. He's always there. So even in the midst of extreme temptation, where evil is bombarding you, God is still there. And God is there to be a very present help to you in that time of trouble where you are being attacked, for you to be able to lean on God, to be able to submit and surrender and make the right choice and the right decision at a time to where you not only can glorify God, but that you yourself can be set apart and sanctified and grow stronger in your walk with God. Yeah, there's no doubt it sounds good. No doubt it looks good. No doubt it tastes good. It feels good. It's appealing. It's fun. It's exciting. It's pleasurable. But all those things, short term. That's all we see is the short term. It's kind of like going to a car lot. Don't go to a car lot until you're ready to buy. Because you know what they want at the car lot? They want you and your emotions. They want you you want to sit in that, sir? Would you like to test drive that, sir? It's all for one reason, to try to get your emotions stirred to where you see it. You see yourself in it. Wow, man, I'd be looking good in this. Boy, this feels good. Ride smooth. This is what I want. And if they can get your emotions stirred with a good enough credit or somebody that'd be crazy enough to co-sign with you, they can get you to make a decision, short-term gratification. But a lot of these people you run up against 2-3 years later, long-term consequences. I wished I would have, I'm the same way. I wished I would have never, ever done that. So how do we say no? When our flesh is saying yes, yes, yes. How do we win and how do we overcome? And how do we set ourselves apart in this dark world to where we're planned up, prepared up, and ready to execute so that we can not only overcome, but we can win? Number one, you need to be realistic. You need to be realistic. What does that mean? Verse 13, 14 there says that God's not tempting you, for God's not tempted God never tempts and is never tempted by evil, but each one is tempted when he is carried away and enticed by his own evil or his own sin nature inside of him. So first thing you got to do is you got to be realistic. This is so simple, and that is you got to realize you got a target on you, especially if you're going to live for God and you're going to be a light for God. Now, if you're not going to live for God and be a light for God in this dark world, then temptation for you might still be there in some realms, but it's not to try to put your light out. It's to just try to just go on and destroy the rest of your life. So you got to realize you're a target. And you got to realize that you're not only a target, you got to realize the enemy's coming. And the enemy's not your wife, it's not your husband, it's not your boss, it's not that group that you've had a bad relationship with. Your enemy is principalities and powers and world forces of wickedness in the heavenly places that are doing things in the unseen realm that we can't see with the physical eye. So we have to be realistic and realize that temptation is coming our way. And 4 things we need to realize up under this. 3 things. First of all, you need to realize it's personal. It's personal. Yeah, it is. It's personal. You are the problem. You are the target. And you'll never move forward 1 inch in your Christian walk with God without being a target and without it being personal. It's called spiritual warfare. That's what it's called. And I know a lot of times we have a hard time latching on to those things that we can't see. But there is a demonic realm all around us every day that is at work. There are bad angels and good angels everywhere we go. And there's a spiritual warfare going on with the angels of God and the angels of hell, and we're right in the middle of the battle. So we got a target on us. It's personal. Second of all, it's not only personal, but it's planned. Do you ever realize that you're not tempted to do something that's not enticing? Just like you could call me up and invite me over to watch a ball game, to drink beer. Let's muss this little peel up and drink with it. Let's muss this little peel up and snort it. Let's smoke a little weed, Pastor, a little weed, man. A little weed out on the back porch to make it all feel good. That way man, you ain't got to worry no more, Pastor. Let me go to this other realm. Man, you could just be relaxed. You'll feel good. You go to sleep. You can say that all day long, and it's not enticing to me. That's not going to entice. That's not me. That might be an enticement. You might not tell everybody here, but that might be you. But there's like hundreds of categories. And I'd say that maybe a lot of people, it could be your anger, it could be your attitude, to where the enemy knows all he's got to do is just stir you up and tempt you just a little bit. So we're studied. It's kind of like if you're going to study something, you would make a chart, you'd write it all out, and you'd have a plan of attack there on how you wanted to do strategy 1, strategy 2, and strategy 3. And that's what temptation is. Temptation is not, hey, let's see if we can get Jeff to destroy his life today with one choice. For most people, it doesn't happen that way. You don't make one choice and destroy your life. It's like all these people talking about, well, I didn't do it but one time. No, you lying. You lying. Even though you might be the one that didn't, everybody still thinks you're lying. Don't even say it. Just say, I did it. I did it. I was wrong. I did it. But he comes after us, and it is a process to where he plants a little seed, draws you just a little bit, takes you just a little bit further down the stream, just a little bit further, just a little bit at a time. And before long, he's got that hook in you so good that no matter how bad you want to get away, and no matter how you know you need to get away, you can't. Why? Because that deceptive influence has taken over your mind, your heart, and your will, and you can't get away from it. It's powerful. It's real. It's relevant. Some of you are facing it today. Some of you got that little TikTok. You just little right there in the beginning stages. You better find the escape route now. Because there's going to come a time, a week from now, a month from now, 2 months from now, you're going to know you need to get away, but you're not going to be able to. And it's going to get you. That's what it's going to do. And it's going to get you that quick. It's plain. It's plain. He studies your behavior. See, he even knows what your beliefs are. He knows where you're at in your values, where you're at in your walk with God. And all this right here is a plan for his attack. Number 3, it's not only personal and planned, but it's powerful. I mean, it wouldn't be a temptation if it wasn't powerful, would it? It wouldn't be a temptation if there wasn't something there that made you vulnerable. Now think about it. If we know temptation is coming, and we know that it's going to be personal, and it's going to be planned, and we know it's going to be powerful, we not only need to be realistic about that, but second of all, we need to be ready. Number 2, we need to be ready. Because I'm telling you, this is something that even our children that we're trying to lecture them on when we might be a long ways down the stream ourselves and not even in a position to lecture our kids on temptation and what they're going to face. Yeah, we got to prepare them to be ready, but we've got to be realistic and we've got to be ready first of all. You know, it's like today you got to teach children. It's like amazing. I've got a 12-year-old that I adopted when she was a little baby, and my oldest is 30. So the gap in that, I didn't have to worry about Snapchat. Snapchat, it disappears. You can't see it. Anything you can't see as a parent, you already know there are going to be things going on that ain't good. Now, if somebody can snap you something and me not see it, or you can snap something and I can't see it, there's a problem. It's called there's an enemy out there that knows it too. So what he does is he takes these innocent little 12-year-olds, and I'm telling you, they just don't know. I said, what are you going to say, Megan, when some little boy says, pull your shirt up and send me a picture? You better talk about it. If you don't, they're not going to be ready. Oh, they say, oh, you know the kid responds, oh, Daddy, you know, no, I ain't. What are you going to do when you like a boy and he says, pull your shirt up? I was watching this thing online. Y'all know how I am with these ID shows and all these murder mysteries. And there was something on there just like this. Some man on there pretending to be a young boy. And he got there, he built a relationship with them. They thought he was great, but they thought he was just this 15, 16-year-old kid. And eventually he got them to pull the shirts up, to send them some photos, nothing nude, nothing way out there. But then he gained access to knowing all their friends. And then one day, this is what he done. He says, if you don't take off all your clothes, I'm going to send these pictures that I've got to all your friends. And you know what happened? They were between a rock and a hard place. They felt like they had no choice. See, that's what the enemy does. He just takes you just a little bit at a time until he's got you. We got to be ready. We got to be on guard. We got to put on the armor. I like Instagram where it don't go away. You have to erase it. I hate Snapchat, by the way. I hate it. I don't know why this is an app that all parents thought was okay for their kiddos, and now got all these parents backed against the wall. I mean, I had somebody ask me what my snap was. I was like, I don't even know what a snap was. A ball, snap? I didn't even know what they were talking about. They were talking about your snap address where they could send you a message or something. That's the world we live in. And parents, you better know the world you live in if you're going to be helping your kids be ready for the battle that's in front of them. So, temptation, most of the time, is going to catch you when you're most vulnerable. And you know when you're most vulnerable? Yeah, it's when you're at your weakest. That is when you're vulnerable. But you know what? You're also vulnerable when you just came off of a mountain. Because when you've had that mountaintop experience, you think you're invincible. And guess what? I don't care where you are in your walk with God, how close you might be. You might have just came off a 40-day fast, and you might be closer to God than you've ever been. You take your eyes off God and you let the enemy creep into your life, and I guarantee you in 3 months, you'll be a different person than you are today. We need to be ready. We got to put on the armor. Because all the enemy's trying to do is get you to think a wrong thought. So eventually, he can nurse that thought to get you to make not only a wrong thought, but a wrong turn. And one wrong turn leads to another wrong turn, to another wrong turn, to a thought that was worse than the first thought, to take you further and further and further away from your route. How does it happen? 4 things. First of all, desire. We've already talked about it. Temptation comes from your own evil desire. Now, this is what the enemy does. Now, think about the temptation realm that we're going to be tempted in. We're going to be tempted in all the areas that are legitimate desires. We have a legitimate desire to taste. We have a legitimate desire to feel good. We have a legitimate desire to do all of these things, these God-given things that God has given us that blesses us in our life. So what the enemy wants to do is to take a God-given desire and get you to use it in a perverted, ungodly way. So he takes that and he tempts you with a legitimate desire that is already there. You have a legitimate desire to feel and to taste and all these different emotions, and the enemy plays on that to tempt you, to get you to take the bait, to take the apple. Not only desire, but second of all, B, there's deception. When we talk about deception, it's kind of like even what Eve was. Eve already knew, Adam and Eve knew what God said. Her and the enemy were sitting there having a conversation about what God said. She knew what God said. She knew the consequences of what God said. You say, well, how was she deceived? She was deceived into having so many conversations about it that the enemy pulled her further and further, and Adam further and further, until they took the bait. It's that deceptive influence. It's not that I was deceived and I didn't know what I was doing. No, you were deceived and you knew exactly what you were doing, but you were not in control anymore. You didn't have enough control to push stop. Why? Deception, influence, power, dragging you away to your death. That's the reason why when, it's kind of like when someone gets themselves into situations Everybody can see it but them. So you can send different people to them, and let's just go have a talk with him or with her about this or about that. And you know what? They ain't no talk, nowhere, no how gonna do them any good. You know why? Because they're not in control anymore. They're already in the rationalize, hide, and seek. And they've been there for so long that there ain't nothing you can do is going to pull them back. They got to crash. You've seen it. I've seen it. You've probably been there. I've been there. So deceive doesn't mean you don't know what you're doing. It just means you ain't in control no more. You know exactly what you're doing. And it's going to take you somewhere you don't want to go. 3, desire, deception, disobedience. So notice how it moves. It moves from the mind to the thoughts all the way to the choice. So that's where temptation starts here. It just moves and germinates and you feed it. Moves through the heart all the way. Whatever goes in and is inside of you, inside your mind, God says whatever a man thinks, so is he. What does that mean? That means whatever is inside of you that is dominating your mind, and the control center is eventually going to show up in your feet. So desire, deception is going to turn into disobedience. You're going to take the bait. You're going to lose it. You're going to do it. You're going to commit it. You're going to say it. And then it's going to lead to destruction. I love the way James puts it. He puts, when it has conceived, it brings forth death. Now, we know in the realm that we're in that you got to carry a baby, the most part, for 9 months to be able to conceive and give birth. So there's a process. It's kind of like with you and with me. There's a process there to where you might think everything is okay. But when you make choices and the seeds have been implanted with the evil, it's going to conceive. And you're going to have sin babies. Not sin babies, literally babies. You're going to have sin babies in your life. Anger, attitude, lust, immorality, ungodliness. It's going to show up rebellion. It's going to be all over your life. You're going to be having babies everywhere. You're going to be conceiving. You know what that does? That brings destruction. Not some people get destructive things that happen in their life. Everybody does. Some more devastating than others, but definitely devastating. So what do we got to do? We got to, third of all, not only be realistic and be ready, we got to be responsible. Let's say you've already done something, you're trying to bounce back, you're trying to get your life back together. You got to be responsible. There's 4 things I want to speak about right here real quick. First of all, you got to stop making excuses. Last thing I'd want to do is, there ain't nobody here that can't come up with an excuse. Some people can make it sound so good. It's what my daddy did to me, what my mama did to me, what my uncle did to me. It's how they talk to me. And there ain't no doubt this side of heaven ain't none of that good. It ain't. And it's caused a lot of pain in your life and a lot of heartache in your life. But that can't be your crutch forever. Some tragedy that's happened in your life is bad. It's real. It can't be a crutch for you to make excuses about your behavior and your decisions in the present. Yeah, it was bad. It was tragic. So much pain. So much hurt. And for a lot of people, they try to numb that pain. And they numb that pain through pills that they take, And we have people that are not even alcoholics before something like that happens that turn into full-blown alcoholics because they got to drown the pain. There's no doubt, whatever's went on in your childhood, ever how you was treated, ever how what you've been through, it's there, it's real. But it can't be an excuse. You got to stop making excuses for what comes out of your mouth. Second of all, not only stop making excuses, this goes right with it, you got to start taking ownership. I said it, I did it, I was wrong, it was sin. As David said, it was sin against God first, and then I've sinned against others. The world we live in today, taking ownership is not something that our children are seeing today. It's few and far between. Few and far between. If you are a parent of a kid that is in the mid-teen years and you've never told your kid you were sorry about nothing, how are they ever going to be sorry? I mean, yeah, as a parent, we're going to make mistakes. You ever reacted in anger and said something to your kid or popped your kid? We're never supposed to pop our kids in anger. Sometimes we do. We pop, I ain't saying you backhand them with your knuckles and make the nose bleed. You do that, you need to go to jail. But sometimes we react in anger and we don't discipline, we hurt them. You got to tell the kid you're sorry. You shouldn't react in anger. Don't look at it as that's going to be weakness. No, that's not weakness. That's strength. You're teaching the child responsibility. And we've got to start taking ownership. I did it. I sinned. I'm the reason why you're hurting in your life and you're hurting in your life. It was my choices. I did it. I take ownership. When you do that, you take the venom out. Now, granted, I'm not saying that somebody else ain't going to keep beating you over the head with it. They might. But if you're trying to deny it and make excuses for it, they need to keep beating you over the head. Take ownership of it. Everybody already knows you already did it. You already said it. You already went there. You already sold it. You already took it. Everybody already knows it. Take ownership of it so you can get things right with you and God and with others, and that you can take a big step forward in your life. Number 3, quit blaming others. This is a big one because everybody wants to blame somebody else. Her fault, my fault. If a marriage dissolves, it's both of yours fault in some way. Both. And we shouldn't point back and forth at each other. That's how the enemy always wins, is we blame the other person. I did this because of you. No, you did this because you chose to do this. You got to quit blaming others, and then you got to, fourth of all, stop playing the victim. Man, we got more victims in our world today than I've ever seen. I mean, granted, the last thing I'm going to do is get up here and make light of what people have been through. But nowhere in my Bible does God say we can't be healed and whole again. The reason why some people can't be healed and can't be whole again is they don't want to. They don't want to try. They don't want to attempt. I'm not saying it's not a struggle. I'm not saying it's not a fight. I'm not saying it's not a war. It is. But you playing that victim card never gives God the opportunity to heal. Never gives God the opportunity to work a miracle in your life because you're a victim. And most people that play the victim card are looking for sympathy and attention from somebody, maybe a group or maybe from an individual. But we're looking for something, and that's why we keep doing that. But we can't play the victim. Your life might be turned upside down. You might have lost A, B, C, D. Don't play the victim card. Take responsibility for what you've done, and one piece at a time, start bringing your life back to God. Number 4. You need to be refocused. You see, temptation didn't happen all of a sudden. And you being back to where God wants you to be doesn't happen in an instant. Yeah, it starts with repentance. It starts with you saying, God, I've sinned. But you got to refocus. And just like you didn't get to where you got to overnight, you're not going to make it back to where you need to be overnight. You got to get refocused. It's one decision after another decision. That's why James reminds us to get refocused and focus on this, that every good and perfect gift comes down from the Father above. So what he's really saying is, look around at all this death in your life, all this destruction in your life. Look at everything you've done to cause all this chaos, to gratify yourself, and realize God wanted to give you every bit of it the right way, and you chose to do it the wrong way. Now, with you flat on your back, nowhere to look but up to God, realize now, as you start the journey of putting your life back together, that everything good that God wants for you comes from heaven to you on this earth. And it's there for you. God wants to bless you, and God promises to give it to you. But you got to want it just like you wanted what you wanted when you was wanting what you wasn't supposed to want. That's how bad you got to want it. When's the last time you wanted God that much? You got to refocus. You got to surrender. There's not enough willpower in this world to overcome sin for a long-term period. You got to have a relationship with God. You got to learn how to put on the full armor of God, because you're up under full assault and full attack. I don't know where you're at in this today. Maybe just a good Bible lesson for something you need to be reassured of and reaffirmed so that you can continue the journey. Some of you might be smack dab in the early stages of it, and you can run and you can get away from it. It could be some of you that are at a point in your life to where you need to tell somebody, and you need to be accountable to somebody so they can help pull yourself back to where you need to be. But wherever you're at in this journey, don't miss that voice that is speaking to you in your heart right now, right where you're at, right what you're struggling with, and right what you're dealing with. Listen to God and be obedient. Let's stand.